Governor Greg Abbott says he wants Texas to begin building its own border wall. During a border security summit in Del Rio, the governor said the state will contribute to building border barriers and participate in their construction. The governor also vowed that the state will begin arresting migrants who trespass on private property. He said it's part of a larger effort to crack down on illegal immigration.
I will be issuing a new disaster declaration, creating an enhanced border security plan. This plan includes an intensified focus to make sure that we make it even more difficult for people to come into the state illegally, and to make sure there are consequences for people who come into the state illegally.
The governor said more details about the crackdown and the border barrier plan could be released next week. Using state resources to build and pay for border barriers is a key issue for a Texas Republican who's challenging Governor Abbott in next year's primary election. Don Huffines is a businessman and a former state senator. He spoke with our John Engel about the ideas behind his campaign.
Why you and why now?
Well, John, I can tell you, I'm like most Republicans in Texas. We're tired of being lied to. We're tired of broken and empty promises. Look, let's just look at the big issues affecting Texas right now, and that's the border. Property is the border secure? No. Property tax is going down? No. Do we have confidence in our election? No. But let's just take the border, for instance. I mean, this is an invasion. An invasion. We have thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegals pouring across the border right now in Texas. And that's why my message of finishing Trump's wall, building a Texas wall, and doing whatever we need to do to secure Texas's border, without asking permission from the federal government, is resonating so well.
As you know, last week, Governor Abbott was touting his endorsement from President Trump, and we saw the email out to supporters of yours that said, "I am the Trump candidate." What do you mean by that, A? And B, how do you overcome something that really is very influential still in Republican primary politics, the endorsement from Donald Trump?
Well, I'm certainly a fan of the president. I work for the president. I help him raise money. I had two of my children actually on his campaign, working for him in Washington, D.C. But his endorsement doesn't change the facts of the situation. And the facts are, this is a failed administration. The Governor Abbott's administration is a failed administration, and Texans are very smart, and they can see that. Not only is the border open, but our property taxes just keep going up year after year. Texans are tired of renting their homes from the government. And in the Huffines administration, I'm going to work to get rid of property taxes. It might take 10 years to have it happen. We'll phase it out over time, and everybody's going to get a chance to vote on it because it's going to be a constitutional amendment, and we're never going to have income tax. But this is going to be a significant change in how we look at state revenue and how we're going to operate. It's going to create tremendous wealth and opportunity in our state.
So how do you fill that gap then? If you want to maintain Texas's position of not having an income tax, but also rid it of property taxes, how do we pay for schools? How do we pay for our roads?
Well, the key is what you just said. We're going to keep our schools fully funded, and that'll be the goal, and keep our political subdivisions fully funded also. What we're going to do is we can cap state spending. Right now, state spending is generally capped at 2.5%. But if you stay there or even lower that, your state revenues grow more than that. State revenues are going to grow at, say, 6 to 8%, 7%. And you take that revenue growth and you can buy down property taxes. We can move some of the property tax over to the sales tax bucket, a consumption tax. And it's all very doable. And we've got a great plan on that. And we'll be revealing that as we go further into the campaign.
Was there a specific moment over the last, say, year, 18 months where you said, I got to get involved? Or has this been something you had hoped to do for a long time?
No, yes, there is a specific moment. And look, I don't need a new job. I'm only doing this because the job's not getting done. And it was last year when the governor shredded our Constitution, our federal Constitution, our state Constitution, when he put over 3 million Texans out of work in 1 week. He destroyed more jobs than this state's created in 15 years, and he did that in 1 week. He destroyed businesses. He didn't ask permission. He just did it unilaterally. And he closed our churches. And however the state responded to the virus scare he was directly responsible for that. It's on him. So that was a catalyst for me to saying that we have got to have a change at the top. Everything in Texas starts at the top with leadership, and we need courageous leadership.
Politics reporter John Engel joins us now. We heard Huffines criticize the governor's pandemic response. Did he say what he would have done differently?
Yeah, he focused a lot on the legislature. And as a former state senator from Dallas, he wants to clearly define those separations of power. And while Don Huffines was very critical of Governor Greg Abbott's coronavirus pandemic restrictions, he said that if the legislature went that route for a special session to figure out how the state should navigate the pandemic, that he would be all for it. But he likened it to a king or an authoritarian, navigating on their own with billions of dollars of federal relief funds and restrictions for religious organizations and schools. And he said that should have been up to the legislature.
Now, that plan to eliminate property taxes is an interesting one. He told you he has a doable way to pay for the plan. Do the numbers add up?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Don Huffines says that could be accomplished over the course of 10 years with a constitutional amendment by reducing property taxes incrementally to zero. He would compensate for that with a consumption tax, so putting that onto sales tax and other goods. Now, we know that that would be regressive in nature and would really hurt our poorest communities in Texas, people who don't have home ownership. And so, do the numbers add up? It's hard to tell that Don Huffines would be able to get that A, through the legislature, and B, through a popular majority vote with Texans. But he says he could do it by offsetting that onto consumption.
Now, he is the first Republican candidate to challenge Governor Abbott in the primary, but he might not be the last. Who else is considering? Any Democrats?
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. On the Republican front, everyone's watching what Texas GOP Chairman Alan West is going to do. He said he was going to resign on July 11th and then consider his option. He says he's being very prayerful about it. But he's left the door open to a run for governor, and he's been very critical of Greg Abbott throughout the course of the pandemic as well. Remember, last October, he was at that protest at the governor's mansion with Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, who also said he's considering a run for governor. It's very unusual for a state party chair to be so critical of the most powerful elected official in that state party chair's party. But that's where we are with the Republican Party in Texas right now. So I would say Alan West, Sid Miller on the Republican side is what we're watching. And then for Democrats, the bench is really, really light. Everyone's watching to see what former Congressman Beto O'Rourke is going to do. Right now, he's on a statewide voting rights tour, and we can kind of liken that to the launch of a campaign. But he said he's going to wait to see if he can defeat voter suppression efforts in Texas, or if the federal government will step in. Democrats are waiting on Beto, and they don't have a whole lot longer to wait before that ticket could really get hurt.
All right. John Engel, thank you very much.
Of course.
Decisions at the Capitol will lead to new investment to protect the Texas coastline from hurricanes.
These storms impact our state in so many ways.
Why the legislation got support from lawmakers who live far from the coast.